You're watching Mind Your Own Business with Jonathan Dawson.
Hey everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Mind Your Own Business here on CBT News. I'm of course your host, Jonathan Dawson, and today we're talking about some strategies that I went over at a recent event at my Pinnacle Training Center. I hosted an event called the Leadership Mastery Workshop. We had managers and GSMs, GMs, and even dealers from all over the country come together to discuss some of the core best practices and strategies that are helping other dealers be successful. Think of it like a condensed 20 group, and this is what we covered. We covered 9 specific principles that can make a difference for your dealership. Now, obviously, over a day and a half of covering all these different ideas and concepts and strategies, I can't do that all in this episode, but what I can do is give you a high-level summary of a couple of them. So today, for your entertainment and information, I'm going to cover 3 different principles we discussed at the event. I'm going to talk about an idea called starting with the end in mind. We're going to make sure that you have an idea, a clear vision of what is it that I'm trying to do before I ever start to do it. The second principle we're going to discuss is how to hire on purpose with your people that you're bringing onto your team, because so many dealerships are making hiring decisions, but they're not purposeful in their hiring decisions, which means you end up hiring someone you later on regret making that decision about. And the third principle we're going to talk about is remember they're all weirdos. So hang in for that last segment there. Let's get started with the first principle, which is start with the end in mind. Now, this as a guiding principle is a great philosophy to have whenever you're trying to solve anything. Anything at your store that you're trying to fix or improve, obviously it helps if you have a clear vision of what it is you're moving towards. So the idea of starting with the end in mind is, where are we actually trying to go with this? What's the end result we actually want to accomplish? Now let me show you some practical ways in which having this philosophy in the back of your heart and mind will help guide you in better decision making. Let's take something as simple as corrective behavior. Somebody on your team is doing something you don't want them to do. Well, you don't want to simply have them stop doing the thing that they're not doing right, or stop doing the thing they're doing wrong. You actually want to, hopefully and ideally, get them to a new and better place. So when you start with the end in mind in something like team development or corrective behavior, what you want to do is ask yourself, what is the ultimate outcome I really want for this person? What's the ultimate outcome I want for the relationship? What's the ultimate outcome I want for our company and their role within it? If you start with the end in mind, then when you walk into the room, you're not simply talking about the thing you want them to change. You're talking about a vision or a destination you want them to arrive at. And when you're having conversations with somebody, and you can have both in the back of your mind and heart and in the forefront of the conversation, the end in mind, where you want to take them, where you want them to end up, then it makes the content of the conversation more meaningful for both parties. Also, it helps you from maybe making a decision in the spur of the moment based out of frustration. It maybe calms you a little bit to go, hey, the ultimate goal I have for this relationship or this person is this longer term vision. So how do I approach the conversation that fulfills that destination I'm ultimately trying to take them to? Starting with the end in mind also helps when you're trying to adjust a process. Sometimes we have to correct people, sometimes we have to correct process. So if you have something happening at your dealership that you go, man, this is just not effective, instead of simply getting focused on the aspect that's broken or the area of the process you think is being slowed down, again, start with the end in mind. What is the ultimate result we want to accomplish with this process? What are we really trying to do? Let me give you a practical example of that, something I teach in BDC and lead management. So in my philosophy of lead management, if I ask a room full of salespeople or BDC agents, anybody who takes inbound leads, if I ask them, what's the ultimate goal? What's the ultimate purpose? What does a good lead management process look like? A lot of them, they'll say something like, set an appointment, sell a car. And those are kind of the default answers that I hear. But I say, well, wait a second, is that really what we're looking for? Because you can set an appointment technically with somebody who doesn't have any intention of keeping it. So you did set the appointment, but they don't necessarily keep the appointment. Or maybe you, quote, sold them on the car, you got them to want to buy the car, but the challenge is they don't necessarily want to buy it from you, or they don't necessarily care who they buy it from, but they're committed to buying the car. Once again, what's the real great purpose of a great lead handling process, it's not simply to set an appointment or sell a car. It's really to cause the client, or in this case, the prospect client, it's to cause them to want to meet us. It's to cause them to want to do business with us. Theoretically, if my goal is to set an appointment, I could be on a phone call with you for 45 seconds and technically set an appointment. You call in and say, I'm looking for an ABC vehicle. I say, sure, we have it. When would you like to come in and look at it? And the customer says, I can probably come in tomorrow around 3. Perfect, I'll see you tomorrow around 3. Technically, set an appointment. But does that customer really want to meet me? Does that customer really want to work with us? Probably not. And so in asking the bigger question, what is the end in mind? What is the ultimate thing we're trying to accomplish? It helps you start to ask new questions about the process you're building. Let me give you another example when it came to changing behaviors within a team. You know, one of the BDC managers I was working with one time said to me, John, I'm having a hard time getting people to send out videos. And they said, you know, I just can't get my team to send out videos. I can't get my team to send out videos. I talked to them about it. We have a software for it. We have webcams on every station. I show them the examples of videos we've done in the past. I show them the responses from customers who get our videos. I've done everything I can, John, to get my team to do videos. I still just can't get them to do it. I said, that's interesting. She said, in fact, my 4 newest BDRs I hired 4 new people, can't get them to send out videos either. Nobody wants to do it. Okay, so let's start with the end in mind. The end in mind is we want people who want to send out videos to know and do the videos that we want. We want them to do it, we want them to know to do it, and we want them to have the behavior of doing it. Okay, starting with that end in mind, let's go to the beginning of the process and let's look at what happened. Well, I just asked her for one simple thing. I said, can you pull up the ad that hired the last 4 people you just hired? Let me see the ad. So she said, sure, what do you want to look for? I said, I just want to look for one word in the entire ad. I'm just looking for one word. In the entire ad, I just want to find one word. And she says, what word are you looking for? I said, do you want to guess? She said, drive. No. Ambition. No. Coachability. No. No. The word I'm going to look for in your ad for their last 4 BDRs you just hired, I'm going to look for the word video. And she went, oh, this is annoying. This is so annoying. I said, am I going to find the word video in your ad? She's like, you already know the answer. So it's interesting because the thing that she complains about, the thing that she's been tolerating, the thing she's frustrated about is a team that doesn't embrace video. And yet, her ad never had the word video in it even once. You see, because she didn't start with the end in mind when she started her recruiting process, she didn't look to say, what am I solving for when I build this process? And am I building a process that will solve that pattern that I'm looking to solve? Will I be able to solve it? So once we examined it, we realized that, you know, she needed to have the word video all over the ad. It probably needed to be in the subject line. It should say something like, something like lead response team specializing in video. And then when you open the ad, the first sentence is, we send more videos than any other team, which is why our team does better than anyone else in our market. We are a high-performing team that sends out hundreds of videos a week to our customers. We send out videos that are confirmations of appointments. We send out congratulations on your purchase videos. We send out management introduction videos. We send video walkarounds of vehicles that people are interested in. We send out so many videos because we believe that communicating through video is the best way to do it. If that was the opening of the ad, and someone read the ad, they would know that video is kind of important. Now, instead of asking for them to reply with a resume, might want to ask them to reply with, are you with me now? Go ahead. Video. Hey, reply with a video telling us why you think you'd be a great fit and why you believe that you'd thrive in an environment like ours. When they get a video, maybe you send a video back. Hey, thanks for your video. I'd like a second video, this time of you maybe doing a walk around of a vehicle, your own personal vehicle. The best candidates, the best applicants will have a video that has a car staged in someplace nice or interesting, maybe with a pond in the background or some trees in the background. The car will be clean. There'll be 2 water bottles in the cup holders. There'll be a note taped to the window that says, waiting for Jonathan. The best applicant will have all of that staged when they send us their 60 to 90 second video. Well, if you ask for that and they won't do it, let's just say this, let's be clear. If they won't work to get the job, you should have no confidence they'll work once they have the job. So I just want to start with the end in mind. Hey, listen, these are the things I'm going to expect you to do. Are you willing to do them now? Because if you won't do them now, you're not going to magically start doing them later. And that's what it means to start with the end in mind. So when it looks to people improvement, process improvement, pay plans and incentives, if you want to mind your own business, you've got to pay attention to the end result and start with the end in mind. That's the first principle we explored at my conference. Now, the second thing that we did is we talked about hiring on purpose. You see, when you hire on purpose as a strategy, as I just mentioned when it came to the example with BDC, it means you start with the end in mind and you hire on purpose. As an example, does your dealership right now, can you produce for me, if I walked in and said, hey, show me the document, do you have an ideal candidate profile that you use as the framework for all of your recruiting efforts? For each position, for example, in the sales department, do you have an ideal candidate profile of what you think an ideal sales professional in your team, what does that look like? Do you have a job description, ideal candidate profile that you use for recruiting purposes whenever you have management opportunities? Sometimes managers will hire somebody because they're a good interviewer and they built rapport with you, but maybe they don't have the skills that you're looking for to actually operate in that role. Just yesterday, I was talking with a GSM who's looking to hire somebody, a manager for his team. Now, he's a client of mine, so he reached out with some advice and some questions. And he said, Jonathan, I had a candidate that wanted the job, who's currently unemployed. I gave him the option of coming in on a Saturday and just working the floor with us as essentially a subcontractor. Come in, work the floor, take turns, close deals, just be a floating TO manager. The guy declined the option. He said, no thanks, that's not something I feel like I have to do. I've already proven myself. Fair enough. Maybe he has to the last employer that fired him. Maybe you proved yourself to the last employer that let you go. But if you want to join my company, you might need to prove yourself to me. You see, when you hire on purpose, it means you have a clear strategy for how you're going to onboard and hire new people. As an example, and again, I ask you, can you provide this for us? If I said to you, if I walked into your dealership and said, hey, show me your road to the hire, do you have a clear, defined road to the hire the way you do a road to the sale? Once again, it's so common that a salesperson who struggles is struggling because they don't follow the steps of the sale. It is so common that if you have a struggling salesperson, somewhere in the steps of the sale, they're skipping steps, they're shortcutting steps, they're sabotaging steps, and not you or I would ever be surprised that some salespeople who consistently skip steps end up struggling in sales. Not surprising at all. Yet, with management talking to me about hiring, they'll say, John, it's so hard to find good people. John, it's so hard to find good, motivated people. And I say, yeah, maybe it is. I see that you're struggling with it. But can you show me your road to the hire? And they go, what do you mean? Well, you have a road to the sale to give you the steps specifically outlined in order to increase the likelihood of a successful conversion. You have steps you follow to maximize the opportunity of a sale. Do you have the same thing documented, the steps of your hiring process? Specifically what you're going to do to put a candidate through the paces to make sure it's a good hire? And they say, no, we don't have that. Well, in my class at the Leadership Mastery Workshop I had at my Pinnacle Training Center, I shared with them the 12-step road to the hire I developed to help dealerships maximize all their opportunities for hiring. With each step itemized and specifically telling you what to do to increase the likelihood that you're not making a bad hire and you're not going to have to fire this person later. So starting with the end in mind as a base principle applies to something like hiring on purpose, because if you don't have a clear direction of where you're going to go, if you don't have a clear, ideal candidate profile, if you haven't got clear job expectations and daily activities outlined, and you're not providing that as part of the recruiting and hiring process, you're going to make bad hires that you're later on going to regret and have to clean up. That was the second principle we talked about. The third principle, remember, they're all weirdos. I tell you, it's so common that I'll have a conversation with the management team and they'll say, John, I have some people on my team and I just don't know how to motivate them. I don't know how to get them to the next level. I don't know how to unlock their potential. I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do here. And it frustrates the managers because they often reflect on what would have worked on them. You see, I can't help it. As an egomaniac, and you as a fellow egomaniac, we cannot help but look through the lens of our own perception. We go, well, this would have worked with me. And it's so typical, it's almost comical how often a manager will say, John, when I sold cars back in the day, if my dealer had offered this, I would have, back in the day, John, I would have begged for my, and it's like, yeah, I get it. No, I do. But these people are not you. They're not you. So telling me all the things that would have worked on you doesn't necessarily matter to anyone who's not you. Remembering they're all weirdos is that everyone is wired different than you, which is why they feel so weird to you. They're just wired differently. What would motivate you doesn't motivate them. And now, when you're trying to coach and develop teams, the hard part about it is you have to do it on an individual basis. You cannot apply a one-size-fits-all motivation strategy to an organization. They're just not all wired that way. Now, depending on your hiring strategies, going back to what is the end in mind, principle number one, if I have principle number one, and let's say what I'm trying to hire is people who are wired like this, then when I do principle two, which is hire on purpose, I have less weirdos, or at least my own special brand of weirdo anyway. I have more of my kind of weirdos and less of the other weirdos working for me. Sometimes you're surrounded by these weirdos, you're so frustrated, but you hired them that way. You hired someone who has terrible time management and then you're frustrated. You hired someone who's incredibly disorganized. That's who they were. They spent 36 years of their life that way and you're like frustrated with them being that way. That's who they were when you interviewed them. That's who they were when you hired them. You just didn't know how to find that out until after they had the job. So when you remember they're all weirdos, as a leader, what does that mean? It means we have empathy, we have grace, we have compassion. That doesn't mean we don't have rules and it doesn't mean we don't have expectations. It just means we understand that they're not all going to respond the same way. Somebody on your team you could walk up to right now. You could walk up to somebody and you could say, man, I'm really disappointed in you. I'm really frustrated. Lately you've been letting me down. I need you to get your act together. Let's go. You deserve better. I deserve better. Let's get this thing done. And there's someone on your team that'll go, you know what, boss, you're right. And they'll run through a brick wall for the next 3 days, jacked up that you held them accountable. And then there's somebody else that you can say, hey, you forgot to log a customer in the CRM yesterday. We need to remember to do that. And they go find a corner and cry for the next 3 days. And it's like, what's going on here? Well, you hired someone who can't deal with rejection. You hired someone who's not coachable. You hired someone who doesn't deal with what they perceive as conflict. If you're hiring on purpose, that means you have identified the core traits that you're looking for so that you can make sure you're recruiting for them. When you're working with weirdos and you're like, why aren't they motivated by me the same way? It's because you hired them that way and you've allowed them to stay that way. If you want to change and motivate a team, you need to get on an individual level and find out what are they motivated by. Some of the things we discussed in my leadership class, we discussed the fact that some people are very external. They need an external voice to tell them what to do. They don't have the self-driven initiative. Some people are highly internal, which means they only listen to the internal voice. You could say whatever you want to, but until they tell themselves to do it, they ain't going to do it. We talked about the nature of some people being motivated more by pain and others more by pleasure. Do you realize you have some people on your team that if you threw a $500 spiff at the room, half of them would duck so it doesn't hit them? Well, why is that? Why are some people not motivated by a $500 spiff? But what's interesting is if you gave them $100 at the beginning of the day and you said, if you don't make your 20 phone calls, you have to give me that 100 back, they'd hit the phone right away and they'd pound out 20 calls. Why would they do it? Because the fear of loss is a greater driver of their behavior than the hope for gain. If you're a high hope for gain management team member, if you're a person who's wired by pleasure and the person across from you is wired by pain, and you're talking about all the things they could gain, their brain doesn't process what you're saying. Why? They're a weirdo. They're wired different than you. So at our leadership event, there was 9 different principles we discovered. We went through them all one by one and dug deep into them and showed how they're impacting your team, your production, and your profitability. And now you have a snapshot of what we covered. Hope that was helpful for you. Mind your own business, pay attention to your people, start with the end in mind, hire on purpose, and make sure that in everything that you do, you have a real clear plan on how to help develop your weirdos. Appreciate you. Catch you next time.
This has been Mind Your Own Business with Jonathan Dawson.